The EV dream meets harsh reality. When the Biden administration set a target that half of all new car sales should be electric by 2030, automakers responded enthusiastically. Ford announced massive plants dedicated to battery production. General Motors said it would transition its lineup almost entirely to EVs within a decade. Volkswagen and other European car makers promised sweeping changes, while luxury brands like BMW and Mercedes-Benz said their futures would be defined by electrification. The story they told was one of rapid transformation. Gas-powered cars were going to vanish, and anyone who doubted the shift was accused of being stuck in the past. Investors and politicians alike pushed the narrative that EVs would soon dominate global roads. Yet in practice, the results are underwhelming. Ford recently admitted that its electric division is losing billions every year, with projections of a $4.5 billion loss in 2024 alone. GM conceded that it loses about $8,000 for every electric car sold. Volkswagen has faced endless complaints about glitchy software and dated interiors in its electric ID series, damaging customer trust. Even Tesla, the long-standing leader in the EV market, continues to face criticism for poor build quality, inconsistent service, and frustrating design flaws. In other words, the EV transition is not going as smoothly as it was advertised. Instead of revolution, the industry is facing mounting disappointment, the inventory crisis. Walk through many dealership lots in the United States and you will notice a strange sight. Rows and rows of shiny new EVs sitting untouched, some of them for months at a time. These cars are not flying off the shelves like government officials promised. Dealers report difficulty convincing customers to take them home, while gas-powered vehicles and hybrids continue to sell briskly. The problem is not just limited to the US and Europe. Volkswagen and Mercedes-Benz have both slowed production due to weaker than expected sales. In China, the largest EV market in the world, demand is showing signs of cooling as subsidies decline. Toyota, often criticized in the past for being too cautious with EVs, now appears vindicated in its decision to stick with hybrids as its main strategy. Consumers, it seems, are not ready to commit fully to battery-powered vehicles. The reason is simple. Many buyers like the idea of EVs in theory, but when faced with the cost, the reliability questions, and the inconvenience of charging, they hesitate. Automakers are discovering that hype and reality are not the same thing. Why customers are reluctant? The first and most obvious barrier is cost. According to Kelley Blue Book, the average price of an electric vehicle in 2023 was over $53,000, while the average gas-powered vehicle cost closer to $48,000. That difference may not sound huge, but for families already squeezed by inflation, high interest rates, and rising insurance premiums, it often makes EVs an impossible option. Even with tax credits, the sticker shock is very real. Then there is the question of reliability. Surveys by J.D. Power and Consumer Reports have found that electric cars consistently score lower in dependability compared to traditional vehicles. Part of the issue lies in their heavy reliance on new software and electronic systems, which are more prone to bugs and breakdowns. For drivers accustomed to the proven durability of gas engines, these issues can be a deal breaker. But perhaps the biggest frustration of all is charging. America's charging network is nowhere near where it needs to be. Secretary of Energy Jennifer Granholm made headlines when she attempted to take a road trip in a Cadillac Lyriq EV, only to run into broken chargers, crowded stations, and delays so bad that one frustrated family called the police after being blocked from charging. Journalists who have tested EVs on long trips report similar headaches. Rachel Wolf of the Wall Street Journal described her test drive bluntly, saying she spent more time waiting for her car to charge than she did sleeping. For many drivers, charging anxiety is worse than range anxiety. A car that theoretically drives 300 miles per charge is useless if the infrastructure to recharge it quickly and reliably does not exist. J.D. Power reports that 1 in 5 EV drivers who pull up to a charging station end up leaving without gaining a single mile of range. For a technology that was supposed to simplify driving, the experience often feels more complicated than ever. The automaker rebellion. Faced with these realities, automakers are beginning to revolt against their own commitments. Ford recently paused construction of a $3.5 billion EV battery plant in Michigan, despite $1.7 billion in state incentives. Executives openly admitted they are unsure whether such a facility could ever be profitable under current market conditions. General Motors and Honda, who once planned to develop affordable $30,000 EVs together, scrapped the partnership altogether. They concluded that building truly affordable electric cars is not feasible with today's technology and supply chain constraints. Tesla, meanwhile, delayed its plans for a new $1 billion factory in Mexico, citing concerns over profitability and demand. Volkswagen has quietly slowed down its European expansion projects. In other words, nearly every major player is hesitating. The same companies that once insisted EVs were the only path forward are now admitting that consumer demand is weak, production costs are high, and the business model may not add up for years to come. Political pressure and public backlash. The role of politics cannot be ignored. The Biden administration has tied its environmental legacy to the rapid adoption of EVs, offering billions in subsidies and loans to push automakers toward electrification. Ford alone received a $9 billion loan to expand its EV capacity. Yet industry insiders argue that government mandates are racing far ahead of consumer demand, creating an artificial push that could backfire. In late 2023, nearly 4,000 car dealers signed a joint letter to President Biden, warning that EVs were piling up unsold and urging him to slow the timeline. Their message was blunt. Political targets mean little if customers refuse to buy the cars. The debate has also entered the broader political arena. Donald Trump has repeatedly mocked the forced EV transition as stupid, promising to put an end to what he calls EV madness if re-elected. His approach emphasizes consumer choice, arguing that people should not be forced into electric cars if they prefer gas. Biden, by contrast, remains committed to using government policy to drive adoption. The split highlights how electrification has become not just a technological issue, but a political battlefront. Stories of frustration. Statistics tell part of the story, but real-world experiences reveal just how bumpy the EV road has become. Families have reported being stranded on long road trips when chargers malfunction. Some drivers waited hours to recharge only to discover that the equipment was too slow or broken. Owners of newer EVs have been shocked at how quickly their resale values dropped as newer models came out, often heavily discounted with incentives. For many early adopters, the frustrations have been enough to swear off EVs altogether. Surveys suggest that as many as 40% of EV owners say they would not buy another one, an astonishingly high rate of dissatisfaction for a product category that is supposed to represent the future. Automakers banking on repeat customers may find themselves disappointed if those numbers hold. The economics that don't add up. When EVs were first promoted, they were sold as both environmentally friendly and economically sensible, but so far the math has not worked out. Manufacturing costs remain stubbornly high. Raw materials like lithium and cobalt are volatile and often sourced from unstable regions. Infrastructure costs for charging networks are enormous, and progress has been slow despite government funding. Meanwhile, consumers face higher purchase prices, uncertain resale values, and the possibility that future battery replacements could cost thousands of dollars. Even the supposed advantage of cheaper fuel has been undermined. In many cities, using DC fast chargers can be more expensive than filling up a gas tank. The so-called EV rebellion by automakers is not a rejection of the idea of electric cars altogether. It is a recognition that the market cannot be forced by government mandates alone. The transition must align with consumer needs and economic realities. Otherwise, the industry risks building cars that nobody wants to buy. That was all from us today for this video. For more similar content, make sure to subscribe to Rev Without Roar. See you in the next one.